again.
Okay,
Right.
now we're good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 11, 2024 meeting of the Metropolitan Washington Old Time Radio Club. If you were expecting to see our president, Wendy Wilmer, she won't be with us tonight. I'm happy to say she's with family attending a wedding in Georgia. I see that we have a new member with us tonight, Coleman Daniel. Welcome, Coleman. Happy that you're here. And I saw Dwayne, you're a guest tonight.
Yes, I am. I'm with the Zane Grey group.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you here because apparently you're not going to the convention this year. So glad you made it for tonight.
Thanks for the invitation.
And are there any other guests that I don't see right now? Okay, well, welcome. Now, before we start with the program tonight, I want to say thank you to Kelly Gray. She's helping me because everybody knows I'm technically challenged. So she will be running Zoom tonight. And thank you, Kelly. And, you know, everyone will remember Kelly filled in last month for Sally. So thanks again, Kelly.
Happy to do
All right.
it.
Now, I'm looking for Karl Schadow. Are you there, Karl?
518, the 518 area.
Okay,
I'm
there
sorry.
we go.
518. No, not 518. It's 804.
Okay. All right. That's why I didn't recognize it. So Kelly, can you make Karl and I co-hosts, and we'll present Karl's presentation of Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mounted.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so both of you will be co-hosts.
Correct.
Okay, let's see. here.
Correct.
Okay, I
Yep.
see. Okay, so Frank is now a co-host. Whoops. Okay, and Karl is I don't see your name. Are you listed by a phone number?
804. 804.
80435. Got it. Okay. And then okay. And it looks like you can only make someone a co-host. You can't make someone a co-host who's calling in. Is that going to be a problem?
No.
Okay.
But apparently we've been doing this before.
Got
and
it. Okay.
I'll ask everyone else if they would please mute so that we can get started. Okay.
Okay, Frank, is the first slide up?
Not yet. I'm no. All right, can everyone see the first slide?
We can see.
Yes, okay. Now let me share the sound and then we'll be in business.
Okay, so everybody can hear me, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay, Frank, thank you. Thank you. The club has done a lot to publicize Zane Grey this year. Roseanne had, from the Zane Grey West Society earlier this year, presented at the April 2024 meeting, and she also wrote a couple of articles on Zane Grey and the character Tex Thorne, which got me thinking of my interest in Zane Grey's work. And so I'm going to be presenting tonight on Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mounted. Of course, on the left there, we have the creator himself, a dentist, who was also a fisherman, a yachtman, and he turned to Western fiction and became one of the most popular authors in the country in the earliest 20th century. Of course, his landmark novel, Riders of the Purple Sage, defined the Western and Western romance genre. And on the right, we have just a couple of panels of the an early Sunday edition of the King of the Royal Mountain comic strip. We go on to the next slide.
Okay, let's go.
Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mountain, History and Media. It was actually not an original character of Zane Grey, but created by association with Stephen Schlesinger. It appeared as a Sunday strip in 1935, and then a daily strip in March of '36. There were also several Big Little books with such titles as Great Jewel Mystery and The Northern Treasure. Motion pictures. There's a feature film in 1936 released by 20th Century Fox starring Robert Kent. And then in the 1940s, there was the King of the Royal Mountain serials, Saturday morning serials, starring Alan Lane as Sergeant Dave King. Radio, which we're going to talk about tonight. There's a couple of auditions in the 40s. And then there's also comic books that had started in the 1930s. They reprinted many of the newspaper strips through the 30s into the 40s. And then Dell had a comic book for about 10 years or so, from 48 to 58. There was also a couple of television attempts to get King of the Royal Mountain on video. In 1947, the ad agency MWOTRC had the rights to the character, along with telecomics, and they actually produced 52 4-minute episodes. I'm not sure I've been told that they've been released, but I haven't been able to find anything on those. In 1955, Flying A Productions out in Hollywood also produced a series, and I don't think that got past the audition stage. So we can see just very briefly that King of the Royal Mountain was a great multimedia enterprise. Okay, so what about other radio adaptations of Zane Grey characters, and how does King of the Royal Mountain fit into all of this? Well, the first one that I was able to find actually started in 1931, the 1931 novel, Zane Grey novel, Sunset Pass. It's interesting that it was a serial in the newspapers, the Lancaster, Pennsylvania newspapers, and also presented on WGAL in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was owned by the newspaper. So it was kind of a crossover, a plug of both the newspaper and the station. And I'm not sure how many other local productions of Zane Grey novels were done at that time. I'm sure there's others, but that was the only one that I've been able to find so far. In 1941, MCA, Music Corporation of America, the big talent agency, had the rights to the characters of Zane Grey. And in 1941, they produced an audition of Light of the Western Stars, which was a 1913 novel. I'm looking for scripts and audio of that. And we move on down to the Zane Grey, the King of the Royal Mountain audition from 1944, which I'll be talking about, and we'll be playing one of those. And then Riders of the Purple Sage. There's at least one radio adaptation, and that was on Hollywood Star Time in 1946. Hollywood Star Time was an anthology that was on CBS, which presented various radio adaptations of films similar to Lux and Screen Guild Theater. In this particular adaptation, George Montgomery, who starred in the film, also did the radio role on Hollywood Star Time, and Lynn Barry filled in for Mary Howard in the radio adaptation. As I mentioned, in 1947, NWOTRC had an audition of King of the Royal Mountain, and I'm not sure how that relates to the 1944. I'm still trying to figure all that out. And then we move on to the Zane Grey show, which was on Mutual 47 to 48, and that was Tex Thorne, and we'll hear about that a little bit later as well. So let's move on to the Canadian Mounting Radio series. Now, where does King of the Royal Mountain, Sergeant Dave King fit into all those? Well, we see in the 1930s that there were several programs, starting with Canada's Mountain, that was on a NBC Blue network in early 1932. It starred Alan Jocelyn and Eustace Wyatt as two Mounties. Then we moved on to the Colonel Louis Davies series, Blair of the Mounties, which was a syndicated 15-minute series. Then Renfrew of the Mountain, Laurie York Erkson, his works from American Boy magazine, which was both on CBS and NBC Blue in the 1930s. And if you haven't picked up Martin Graham's fantastic book on Renfrew, you need to do it, because that is one of Martin's best books. It's got so much information on there. It's just an amazing book. And then we move on to probably one of the most famous ones, Sergeant Preston, Challenge of the Yukon, which started on WXYZ in 1939 with Tom Dougal, Fran Stryker, and all those folks. And that went into the mid-1950s. Then, of course, we come up to King of Royal Mountain in 1944 and 47. And then in the 50s, the programs were still being developed. Harry Allen Towers had a syndicated series, which was produced in the UK called The King's Men. So, who are a couple of the people who were involved in bringing Sergeant Dave King to radio? On the left is Steve Schlesinger, and I've characterized him, he's a character merchandiser. In the 1930s, he was involved in promoting many radio programs, including a news feature for Newspaper Enterprise Association. He also developed and merchandised the characters Tarzan and Winnie the Pooh for radio. And in 1933, he joined up with Zane Grey to develop radio programs and comic strips and other aspects for Zane, other merchandising for Zane Grey characters. On the right is Don Sharp. You may have heard of him. He's a radio program packager. After working at several advertising and talent agencies, in 1944, he formed his own talent and production firm with programs Results Incorporated that starred Lloyd Nolan and Claire Trevor. He also worked on My Favorite Husband and Night Beat. Okay, so the audition I'm going to play is their audition number 1. It's The Village of the Dead. It was recorded at the NBC Hollywood Studios in the spring of 1944, and you can go ahead and cue that up, Frank, please.
The Village of the Dead, another adventure of Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mountains. Yes, sir, it's King of the Royal Mounted, Zane Grey's famous character brought to life for the first time to ride the adventure lanes of the airways. More than 1 million Americans have already purchased copies of Zane Grey's greatest of all adventure novels. Zane Grey, the novelist whose books have sold in excess of 20 million copies. Sergeant King, best known and best loved of Mr. Grey's fictional heroes, has a following today of some 50 million avidly interested Americans. King of the Royal Mounted appears in newspapers all over America, where he is the principal character of the cartoon strip released by King Feature Syndicate. On an average of 3 times a year, some one of Hollywood's major motion picture studios makes the Zane Grey story into a costly celluloid adventure. Over 10,000 theaters have already played motion pictures based on King. 10,000 theaters with a combined audience of more than 50 million loyal fans. And now, from the cinema capital of the world, Sergeant King rides forth in his first series of tensely exciting, action-packed adventures. Written, directed, and played by men and women whose names have made radio and motion picture banner lines. Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mounted is now available for sponsorship. Why not hit the adventure trails and ride to success with King of the Royal Mounted? There have been a series of mysterious murders in the tiny village of Caribou, a northern outpost of civilization. Inspector Mackenzie has dispatched Sergeant King to investigate the case and apprehend the guilty person or persons. King had scarcely arrived at Caribou when the killer struck again, wiping out all but one in a family of 4. The one remaining member of the family, Claire Ty, who was absent during the slaying, is attempting to aid King in the solution of the crime. She believes that Thaddeus Moss may be able to shed some light on the sinister affair. She and the mounted policeman start for this man's cabin just as a severe storm breaks. We find them now making their way slowly up a narrow wooded trail, both drenched to the skin.
Look out, Miss Claire, a falling limb. The woods are not very safe in a storm like this.
Oh, it's perfectly awful of me to drag you out in such weather.
I'm used to it. It's part of my job, Miss Claire.
I was so terribly anxious to have you talk with Thaddeus Moss. You see, he was the last person to visit our house. The last person to see my people alive.
Oh, what's he like, Miss Claire?
Thaddeus Moss? Oh, he's a meek, mild-mannered little man. Sort of resembles an overgrown mouse.
A mouse?
Really? He has a long, sort of pointed face, perfectly enormous ears, and bright little shoe-button eyes. People around here call him Mousy. But please don't get the idea from my description of him that he isn't a nice person. He is. And he and my father were very good friends.
He lives alone up here?
No, his younger brother's living with him. But Aaron is everything that Thaddeus isn't. He's big and strong and, a bit peculiar.
Peculiar? What do you mean peculiar, Miss Claire?
Well, just not on the bright side, Sergeant King.
Sounds like quite an interesting pair.
Still, it does seem silly of me to drag you out in the storm, just in the slim chance that...
It's often that slim chance that gives us a break in a case like this, and every moment that killer is allowed to run free endangers the lives of other people here.
That's what scares me, Sergeant. Nobody knows where he may strike next.
You're right about that, Miss Claire. It might be you or me or both of us.
But you're doing it splendidly. Splendidly indeed, Aaron. We leave just enough strands to hold the way to the bridge.
But when somebody walks on it, won't it fall down?
Someone is going to walk on it soon. A policeman in a bright red coat.
And won't the bridge fall down with him?
Yes, Aaron, it will. We want it to fall down.
Do we? Why?
Because policemen are bad, Aaron. Policemen arrest people and put them in jail for a long, long time.
No policeman's gonna put me in jail.
Murder is a terrible thing, Aaron.
Murder?
Didn't you know? The murderer has struck again.
Oh.
Listen, coming up the trail. The policeman in the red coat. The policeman, Aaron, in the red coat.
Well, I'll fix him. He'll never put me in jail.
Not too heavy with those blows, Aaron. Not till he's almost on the ridge.
Wait, hold on, Miss Claire.
Whoa. Whoa there.
We can't take the horses across that swinging footbridge. We'll have to tie them here and go on foot.
After we cross the river, we haven't a great deal farther to go.
Hand me your reins. I'll make the horses fast.
Great. I'm not too certain we can make it across the bridge ourselves. Look how the thing is swaying in the wind.
I'll go first, and my weight will steady it a bit. Are you ready to tackle it, Miss Claire?
I guess so, but I can't say I like the looks of it.
If you're nervous about it, take my hand.
I wouldn't like falling off. The river narrows down into a deep gorge here. Must be 100-foot drop to the water.
I'll try to see that you don't fall.
All right, then. Let's go.
Well, the old thing is bucking around all right.
Heavens. I can hardly stand on my feet.
Good Lord! The cable is giving away. The whole thing's blocking the door. Handrail, Claire, don't let go! Miss Claire, are you all right?
I don't know.
Here, put your hand on my shoulder. There's no use trying to fight this current. We'll have to drift downstream till we find a place to get ashore.
The falls are just below. The falls and jagged rocks.
Then we'll have to try to make it to shore here.
But it's sheer cliff. We can't get up it.
We haven't any choice. We'll have to try. Hang on. I'm going to swim for it.
Wait! I'm caught! Something's wrapped around my foot. Help! It's pulling me under.
Wait a second. I'll try to get it loose. I've got it. It's the loose end of the bridge cable, and it's going to save our necks.
Thank heaven, back on dry land.
I'd hardly call it dry, but it is land. How do you feel, Miss Claire?
Oh, I'm petrified. Just frozen stiff.
We'd better get you to shelter somewhere before you come down with pneumonia or something.
In that grove of cottonwoods at the foot of the mountain, there's an old deserted trapper's cabin.
Let's get to it as quickly as we can. There should be something there to build a fire with.
Just one moment, Sergeant King.
Yes?
What made that bridge fall? It's hung across that chasm for 20 or 30 years.
I'm thoroughly convinced of one thing, Miss Claire. It was no accident.
You mean you think
It was a deliberate attempt to get rid of us both.
I suppose it was my imagination, and you'll likely think I'm silly to even mention it, but when that bridge was falling, I would have sworn I heard someone laughing high on the cliff above us.
You did, Miss Claire. It was a wild, unearthly laugh, and when I find a man who laughs like that, he's going to have some explaining to do. Come on, let's get you to that trapper's cabin.
Stop it, I say.
That swinging bridge fell down, Thaddeus.
Yes, I know. The bridge fell down and took those people with it. By now, they're drowned or dashed to pieces on the rocks.
And it served that red-coated policeman right. It served him good and right.
Remember, Aaron, we saw no one, heard nothing. Nothing but the storm.
Oh, but we heard the girl scream, Thaddeus.
That was just the wind, Aaron. The wind howling under the eaves.
Oh, but Thaddeus...
We couldn't have heard the girl scream because we didn't leave this cabin all night.
Oh, well,
Quiet! Listen!
What do you hear now, Thaddeus?
Quiet! That's strange. I thought I heard the sound of an airplane motor above the storm.
An airplane motor above the storm?
Who'd be flying around in weather like this?
Flying around in weather like this?
I don't like the sound of airplanes, Aaron. I hoped I would never hear one again.
Why?
Because planes come from civilization. And I don't like civilization.
Well, what are we going to do, Liggett? I don't know what you're going to do. I'm turning back while there's still some fuel in this plane to do it with.
Turning back? Oh, no, you're not. You're setting this ship down at Caribou.
With the ceiling zero and no visibility? You're crazy if you think so, Bart.
I said you're setting her down. I got business in Caribou, Liggett. Business that can't wait.
But you ain't even sure that this guy Morse is the bird you're looking for. Maybe they give you a bum steer.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't. That chance might be worth $1 million to me.
That much? $1 million is a pile of dough.
Yeah, too much to lose because you've turned yellow, Liggett.
Listen, you. I'll take chances with anybody else. But I know what you can do with a plane and what you can't.
Listen, the map shows a flat, marshy strip of land just south of town. And that's where we're going to land.
Next week, maybe. But not today.
That ain't ice you feel on the back of your head, Liggett. That's the muzzle of a .45. It speaks a little sharper than I do, and it says you're setting her down. Now that you're in front of a fire, Miss Claire?
Oh, that fire's done wonders for me. I feel almost like a new person.
That was a pretty harrowing experience you went through. I know some young women who would have gone to pieces completely. You've taken it like a trooper.
Well, it's sweet of you to say so, but to be perfectly frank, I'm scared stiff. The thought that a madman is running amok in these woods has me simply terrified. Oh.
Well, I don't like to disillusion you, Miss Claire, but I'm afraid there's no madman running loose. This has been the work of a shrewd, cunning, and calculating criminal.
But he must be mad, Sergeant King.
I don't think so. Every step has been planned and carried out too carefully. Nothing has been left to chance.
But that makes it all the more mystifying. Caribou, a tiny little outpost in the wilderness. What possible motive could a criminal have for murdering its inhabitants?
Until we find that motive, our chances of finding the criminal are, well, they just aren't.
Take my family, Sergeant. To my knowledge, they never harmed a soul in all their lives. Unless he is a madman, what reason could he have for murdering them?
There's always some reason for murder. Sometimes it's real, sometimes only imaginary. That's why we've got to dig out every little shred of fact from anyone who knew the victims. That's why I'm anxious to talk to this Thaddeus Moss. Being a close friend of your father's, he may...
King, there's someone at the door.
Quiet. Kid.
Why, it's just a youngster.
Kid, how on earth did you get here?
I followed you, King.
You're hurt.
You're in danger. Great danger. There's... Oh.
He passed out.
Oh, you know the boy then?
Very well. He has a nasty bump in the side of his head, but I don't believe it's serious. Well, listen. There's a plane above us somewhere. I heard its motor distinctly.
A plane up here in a storm like this? Wouldn't you call that a little strange?
No stranger than other things that have been happening here, Miss Claire. Say, I'm going outside and have a look. There it is. Sounds like they're having motor trouble, too.
Funny. There hasn't been a plane over Caribou for at least 2 years. There's nothing to bring them here.
The pilot must have gotten lost in the storm. Look, there he goes over that hill. It's crashed somewhere on the mountainside above us. I'm going up.
I'll go with you if you think the boy will be all right.
Whoever's in that plane may need help worse than kids. Come on, let's go. You're making it all right, Miss Claire?
I had no idea it was so steep.
The plane can't be much farther. We wouldn't have heard the crash so plainly. Well, we're coming out into an opening now. The going won't be quite so tough.
Well, look. That shack just ahead, isn't that the plane?
Yes. The pilot pancaked it onto this flat. Did a pretty fair job of it, too. Hurry, Miss Claire. He may need some help.
I don't see a living soul around the plane.
Well, the shock of the landing may have knocked him out. We'll soon find out when I get this cabin door open. There. Now for a look inside.
Oh, there's the pilot. Slumped over control.
Landing knocked him out all right. Hey, old man. Hello.
What is it, Sergeant King?
This man is dead. Shot through the head.
Sergeant King, there's someone standing in the cabin door.
Don't make a move, Constable, or I'll blast you full of holes.
Well, the mystery surrounding the village of the dead deepens. What sinister purpose is behind this ruthless campaign of death? And who is this airborne visitor whose arrival in Caribou meant so much to him? Be sure to listen tomorrow at this same time for the next exciting installment of Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mountains.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Well, now what an exciting episode that was. No credits, of course, on a syndicated series. So who were some of the players that were involved in this? So if we move on to the next slide with Paul Franklin, he was the writer and also the director of this show. In the 1930s, he was a screenwriter, and he also wrote radio scripts for Your Hollywood Parade and Hollywood Hotel. And later he was involved with Red Ryder as director and writer, and also Big Town. And he was the president of the Radio Writers Guild in the early 40s, and then later in the 40s, he was president of the Radio Directors Guild. And what I like about this photo is, look at all those scripts there. What happened to those? I've been looking for a Paul Franklin archive for years and years, and I haven't been able to find one. So I always like these photos of authors with all their scripts piled to the ceiling there, and I'm hoping they didn't throw them away, and that we'll find them someday. But anyhow, we need to move on to the actors. And did anybody know who played our hero and our heroine? Richard Dix as Sergeant King, and Virginia Gregg as Claire. Richard Dix did very little radio. He was in an episode of Suspense in 1943. That was Death Flies Blind. And also in 1944, Soldiers with Wings. You probably know him best, though, from the Whistler films from the 1944 to 48. Virginia Gregg, she was in basically almost every radio series imaginable in Hollywood. One of the best actresses on the air. She was on The Hermit's Cave, Suspense, The Whistler, Family Theater, everything. And if you recall, Leona Bailey did a talk on Virginia Gregg. I guess it was several months ago, maybe it was last year. So that's our hero and our heroine. How about our villains? Two villains that I've identified so far. On the left, Francis X. Bushman, the silent film matinee idol from the 1910s and 1920s. His radio work, he was on a couple of soap operas, Those We Love and Stepmother. He also was Nero Wolfe in the 1945 series that was broadcast on the West Coast. He was in Lightning Jim, Cavalcade, Lux, and a whole bunch of other programs. He played Thaddeus Moss. Wally Mayer on the right was Bart guy who shot the pilot Liggett, who I don't know. But Wally Mayer was Michael Shane, and he was also in Suspense in The Whistler, and he was in the lineup. Some of the other people I haven't been able to identify, the pilot Liggett, who I just mentioned, also Aaron and the kid, who just had a few lines at the end there. The organist, I don't know who the organist is probably a staff organist at NBC. The announcer was John M. Kennedy. You may recognize that name from Lux Radio Theater. And we'll move on to the audio. Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mountain is a particularly rare, obscure show. I was only able to find it on one website, and that was the radioechoes.com. Many of you are probably familiar with that site. And I've shown the link there. There was actually 3 auditions done in the 1944, spring of 1944, for Zane Grey's King of the Royal Mountain at NBC. And that website has the other 15-minute audition, and also there was a 30-minute audition. And it's interesting that that audition was with a live audience, and they had an orchestra. Scripts, well, I haven't been able to find any scripts yet, and I've been working with the folks at Brigham Young University Special Collections Library, which they have a huge collection of Zane Grey material and also some Stephen Schlesinger material. I'm also looking for scripts from some of the other people, possibly Paul Franklin, who I mentioned, Art Rush, and Don Sharp. So what do I think of the program? I thought overall production, it was pretty good. There was strong characterization by both Richard Dix as the lead and Virginia Gregg, and even the villains sounded like villains. I thought the organ music was pretty good, and the sound effects were excellent with the storm. However, as with many auditions, they just did not get enough publicity. I could only find one blurb for this 1944 series and also the 47, and neither of them sold, unfortunately. So we're stuck. We don't know what happened to them out there in Caribou. I guess we never will until I can find those scripts and report on those later. But I'm working on other sources. Zane Grey West Society is just a fantastic group. They have all the great information, and the website is there, zgws.org. And I've also listed the BYU site for the Zane Grey papers. And in conclusion, I want to thank, of course, Frank Morgan for his work, Don Abbott for increasing the quality of that episode, and also the staff of the L. Tom Perry Special Collections at Brigham Young University for providing some of the information. And perhaps I'll be able to report back later on King of the Royal Mountain, and we'll see you then. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to say I think Francis X. Bushman was a good radio villain.
Is this Joe?
Pardon?
Who mentioned? Who said that? Who's this?
Kelly Gray. I think.
Kelly. I'm sorry, Kelly. You sounded like Joe. I'm sorry.
No. I just thought. Yeah, Francis X. Bushman. That was a good villain voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was excellent in radio. Both as villains and as good guys. He played Nero Wolfe. And, there's only one episode of Nero Wolfe from that 45 series. Unfortunately, it's not a 15-minute, so I can't play it on the first 15, but maybe I can sneak it in someday. But anyhow, yes, Francis X. Bushman was an excellent radio voice. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Phil. I take it that was an original script. It wasn't an adaptation of a book, so we'll never find out what happens, huh?
Right. I looked. That's right. I looked and looked and looked. I tried to find it if it was any of the comic strip, and I'm glad you brought that up. I looked through all the newspaper databases, trying to find out if there was a Claire or a Caribou or anybody, Village of the Dead, and I could not find it. And I assume it's an original by Paul Franklin. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
All right.
Okay.
Karl, thank you very much. As always, it's an excellent presentation, and it's an unusual one. It's rare, and you find out the information that I don't think very few other people could find. So thank you very much.
Right. I'd like to ask, there's at least one person from the Zane Grey West Society present, right? Is that right? Do they have a comment on this at all? Do they know anything about this?
Well, he just made a chat comment. Dwayne, why don't you put your microphone on and because Karl can't see what you had to say. You still with us, Dwayne?
I'm looking. Okay, well, I'll just read the comment. He says, "Thank you very much. It brought back a lot of memories of listening to radio programs with my parents in the 50s. I am with the Zane Grey Western Society."
Yes, we invited the society members to be with us tonight. They are starting their convention on Monday, so I was told that probably most of the people would be traveling. But they did ask me, and I gave them the information as to how they'd be able to watch the program when they get back from their convention. So I think we'll have some people taking a look at it, Karl.
Great. I'll let them know. We'll send the link when John puts up the thing on YouTube. That'll be fine.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess that moves us now to our quiz for tonight. Did you catch that name? And we have our quiz mistress back with us tonight. Sally, unmute yourself, and Kelly's going to start the poll, and we'll be ready to go.
Hello, class. I hear you were very well behaved while I was away last month. I received I see that, Jeff. I know. She left a list of names of those who I will be speaking with later and who will be getting notes sent home and additional homework. So don't think that you're off the hook just because it's a month later. I know. I always know. But I thank Miss Grey for being such an exceptional substitute and for putting up with such a class as I have. My deepest apologies. Now, Miss Grey.
Overall well behaved. Yeah. Shall I launch the poll now?
Hold on. Need to find my copy. There it is.
Okay.
I will be reading the questions. As you know, children, you may answer the questions faster than I may read them. However, I encourage paper pencil participation. And so far, I haven't seen a single person be ready for this quiz. Thank you. Joni is getting her material. Thank you. Lawrence is now ready. Two children. 2 students in this class are ready. There we are. Thank you. Oh, Kelly is always ready. Thank you. I see it now, John. Thank you very much. Much better class. Oh, very nice. Excellent. I see that pen, Dennis. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Very good. We will have to work on the expediency in which we get our materials out, class. I feel like I was doing this all day. I've said this all day. I guess it just never ends. All right. The poll has been launched. Prepare yourselves. For did you catch that name? And if we see that name in here, Frank, we will be having words. Because as you know, I do not read the quiz ahead of time so that I too may play along. So here we are. Number 1. Minera Pius was riotous as Mrs. Nussbaum on Allen's Alley. What was Mrs. Nussbaum's first name? A. Rose. B. Daisy. C. Pansy. D. Violet. Minera Pius was riotous as Mrs. Nussbaum on Allen's Alley. And what was the character's first name? And no, you may not write in flower. That does not give you half credit. Number 2. Jack Benny did several take-off sketches based on Allen's Alley. What did Benny call the sketches? A. Benny's Broadway. B. Benny's Boulevard. C. Benny's Backstreet. D. Benny's Backyard. Jack Benny did several take-off sketches based on Allen's Alley. What did he call these sketches? Number 3. He began his career in silent movies, served as the mayor of Palm Springs, then played the father of Gail Storm in the radio and television comedy My Little Margie. Who was he? A. William Boyd. B. William Demarest. C. Charles Farrell. D. Charles Jones. He began his career in silent movies, served as the mayor of Palm Springs, then played the father of Gail Storm in My Little Margie. Who was he? Number 4. She played Mother on Father Knows Best, and later was the voice of a lead character on TV's The Flintstones. Who was she? A. Frances Robinson. B. Jean Vanderpyle. C. Anne Whitfield. D. Leslie Woods. She played Mother on Father Knows Best, and later the voice of a lead character on The Flintstones. Who was she? Number 5. One of Gildersleeve's Jolly Boys was also the voice of Elmer Fudd.
That's a correction.
Do I
She's
have
right.
Elmer Fudd,
Yes. Yeah.
not Porky Pig.
I know you do, but the correct one is Elmer Fudd. That's the
That's
character.
why you should always listen to the teacher and not rely on the computer. Mm, mm, mm. Number 5. One of Gildersleeve's Jolly Boys was also the voice of Elmer Fudd. Which one? A. Judge Hooker Earl Ross. B. Chief Gates Ken Christie. C. Mr. Peavy Richard LeGrand. D. Lloyd Munson Arthur Q. Bryan. Which of the Jolly Boys was also the voice of Elmer Fudd? Number 6. He played Oogie Pringle on A Date with Judy, but was better known for playing Walter Denton on Our Miss Brooks. Who was he? A. Richard Crenna. B. Jackie Kelk. C. Bob Hastings. D. Jack Grimes. He played Oogie Pringle on A Date with Judy, but was better known for playing Walter Denton on Our Miss Brooks. Who was he? Number 7. He played Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, on Superman. Great Caesar's Ghost. Who was he? A. Bud Collyer. B. Julian Noah. C. Jackson Beck. D. Bill Foreman. He played Perry White on Superman. Who was he? Number 8. Every week, he pitched the Anchor Hawking products and introduced the program Casey Crime Photographer. Who was he? A. Andrew Toney. B. Tony Marvin. C. Marvin Miller. D. Miller Lite. A fine actor. Every week, he pitched the Anchor Hawking products and introduced the program Casey crime photographer. Who was he? Number 9. This cute couple broadcasts more than 1,000 episodes from San Francisco, and in 1930 had an audience in excess of 15 million. Who were they? A. George Burns and Gracie Allen. B. Dick Colmar and Dorothy Kilgallen. C. Goodman and Jane Ace. D. John Coogan and Helen Troy. This cute couple broadcast more than 1,000 episodes from San Francisco, and in 1930 had an audience in excess of 15 million. Who were they? Number 10. During its 9 years on the radio, this musical director developed various versions of the Gunsmoke theme. Who was he? A. Amerigo Marino. B. Jerry Goldsmith. C. Rex Corey. D. Ray Block. During its 9 years on the radio, this musical director developed various versions of the Gunsmoke theme. Who was he? Frank, you snuck that one up on me. Didn't see it coming. All right, kids, you can keep answering the poll as long as Miss Gray decides to be nice to you, which I don't know. I mean, depends on how nice you were to her as a sub. Usually you try to get extra recess, try to tell them the lunch times like half an hour early. Think you can have an hour for lunch. Don't think I'm not wise to these tricks. I wasn't born yesterday. That's right. So if she leaves it up, you can keep answering the poll. Otherwise, what you get is what you get. And there might not be any retakes. So there.
All right, thank you, Sally. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Now we come to the main program, and that's going to be Jeff Whipple. I asked Jeff to give me some background so that I could talk about him, and he didn't. But what I will tell you is that the first time I made a presentation to the club about 10 years ago, I showed up with my laptop and not much else. And Jeff got me all hooked up for the video on the big screen and for the audio so that I could make my presentation. So without Jeff's help, I just stood there, talking to myself essentially. So Jeff, thank you for that. I've always appreciated it. And tonight you're going to tell us about whatever happened to my second banana, etc. So please, Kelly, if you'll make him the co-host, and we're ready to go.
He is the co-host.
All right, thank you. And I really couldn't say what it is going to be because I had this change on me in midstream. And I hope that you can see the screen now. What happened to my second banana, John? This is where I needed you up front and center with me. And it turned into probably the most unique radio television tie-in I've read about in our club of radio shows and TV shows and similarities. But I'll start with what I originally was going to do, which was talking about the second banana. And in the golden age of radio, we heard a ton of co-stars on multiple shows. And I'm not talking about the Virginia Greggs who were regulars on a lot of shows, but didn't have a recurring role, right? They had multiple roles on a show, multiple roles on this show, but I'm talking about a few other people that had co-starring roles, regular weekly roles, multiple shows at the same time. And this really started coming about, I think, in World War II when people went overseas. And so the guys had to start duplicating shows, and the women were right there following in suit, doing the same thing. And I just want to focus on 4 people tonight. And it was kind of, I guess, fortuitous that I picked the last 2 that I picked, because that led me into that last piece of this. And the original intent, I was going to play clips from all of these shows, but I found something else to do. So the first one I want to talk about is Walter Tetley. So he was born in 1915, got his radio start in New York. Who would have thought? On Fred Allen's Town Hall Tonight. And then he actually moved to Hollywood when Allen took the entire cast to film Love Thy Neighbor with Jack Benny in 1940. And in 1941, he began his first co-starring role as Leroy Forrester on The Great Gildersleeve. He was 26 years old, playing that 11-year-old boy. All of his life, he kept that same voice. You'll hear the same voice in the 60s as Sherman on Sherman and Peabody on the Bullwinkle Show. And he played that role throughout the entire run through 1958. I only have them through 54. I know it went to like a 15-minute version after that, like Fibber, McGee, and Molly. I've never heard of any of the 15-minute episodes, though. So if anybody's aware of that, that'd be kind of interesting to hear 1 or 2 of those anyway. And then in October of 48, he added the role of Julius Abruzio on Phil Harris' Alice Faye, which I can't help but, when I talk about that, thank Rebecca Jones for nailing that in our recreation one year. So he played 6 years playing both of those parts. And that's what I was talking about. One 1 week, 2 shows, same guy, same character. The next one I'll talk about is Verna Felton. And Verna had a I got a lot of this from her biography that was written several years ago. She was born in 1890. Her father died unexpectedly in 1899. It was her mother's second marriage. And Verna was a child singing, songwriting phenomenon, and someone saw her on stage and said, I want her for my touring vaudeville company. And so she became the breadwinner at age 10 for her mother and her. And then her radio career started as probably a lot of you know, the mother in The Cinnamon Bear in 1937. Pretty good role for a first role in radio. And she went on later on in that year, soon thereafter, start playing the grandmother to the mean little kid on the Red Skelton show. And kind of ironically, in 1937, she had a couple of guest appearances on Jack Benny. This is before Dennis Day is hired as Phil Harris's mother, which I found interesting. And then in October of 39, became Jack's main nemesis as Dennis's mother. She would appear in these radios through the radio runs of the shows with both Red Skelton and Jack Benny. And a lot of non-recurring, she again was kind of like Virginia Gray, a regular in Lux Radio Theater as part of the stock cast. So in addition to those two main roles, or two co-starring roles, a lot of extra work also. And for her, I want to get into what I found interesting was her work with Disney. She started acting for Disney with Dumbo. Absolutely crushed the fairy godmother in Cinderella, where she sang the famous Bibbidi Boppity Boo song. Lady and the Tramp was the cat-loving Aunt Sarah, and her actual son voiced Jim Deere, who was the male lead in the show. And he also played the dog catcher in the movie. And that movie also features Bill Thompson of Fibber, McGee, and Molly as Jake the Scotty dog, and all the dogs in the pound that weren't Peggy Lee. She was the Red Fairy in Sleeping Beauty. And her final role and her last project she worked on was as Winifred the Elephant in The Jungle Book. She died before The Jungle Book was released on December 14th, 1966, one day before Walt Disney died, who also, his last film was The Jungle Book, which, if we want to tie that back to radio, also had as a big star Phil Harris as Baloo the Bear. So I thought that was an interesting little add to that. And then I'm going to come to the kind of the person who gave me the idea for this was a guy who was in just a ton of radio shows as a recurring character, and that's Gale Gordon. When you read his list of credits, it is fascinating. Born in 1906 into a vaudeville family, he played the role of Flash Gordon in 1935. That didn't fare that well, early radio. But then he began playing Mayor Latrivia in October of 1941 on Fibber, McGee, and Molly. He takes a break from that for 2 years to be in the Coast Guard. So he loses 2 years of a career in World War II, even though, as you can tell, from being born in 1906, well into his 30s by then. In 47 and 48, they switched roles for him, and he played a role called Foggy Williams. I don't like the Foggy Williams character. I don't know if anybody else does, but it was out of respect for, we think, Mayor LaGuardia of New York, who he was really kind of patterned after as the mayor. So that Mayor LaGuardia died in September of 47. They said, we can't have Mayor Latrivia making fun of a guy who just died. We're making a weatherman. And then after the war is when it's incredible the number of roles he plays. He adds Rumson Bullard as Gildersleeve's neighbor, starting in the 45-46 season of that show. Joined Walter Tetley on the Phil Harris Alice Faye show. as Mr. Scott, and Mr. Scott moved around. He didn't care whether he was the vice president of marketing of RCA or of any or any of the other products that they had at the time. So he just moved around with the products moved around. In 48, simultaneously, because they both started in summer, he added My Favorite Husband and Our Miss Brooks. So his regular work was five co-starring roles. That's a lot of work for one person. And he did this. One of the things that was interesting, I got onto the Radio Index site from December of 49 through January, that should say not 50, but 50. Oh, in 2 weeks, he did all 5 of those shows. And I was going to play clips of all 5 of those shows. That's fine. But from September of 48 to June of 51, he appeared in 360 radio episodes just in that little time frame. That's a year's worth of film or recording in basically 2.5 years. And his total on the website, Radio Gold Index, is he appeared in 1,365 radio programs. Jack Benny recorded in 1,150 as the most popular guy on radio. Just to give you an idea of how hard some of these people worked in this, doing these roles. And then when I did this next person is where this starts to really go sideways on me a little bit. The next one I talk about is Sally's favorite person and who I wanted to do the second half of the program with, Miss B. Benaderet, just so I could hear her pronounce it for the rest of eternity. Right, Sally? Here's to me, that's what the glass of wine is for. Also born in 1906, but she was born in New York, but raised in San Francisco, and did extensive radio work in the very early days of radio in San Francisco, and then moved to Hollywood in 1936. And of the 4 people we talked about, she's the only one who could do multiple voices and dialects. If you think back, Walter Tetley, Julius, and Leroy, same voice. Gil Gordon, 5 shows, same voice. You're not even you can't even tell that they're not even trying to be different. They're just themselves, so to speak. And she could do all kinds of different accents, cultures, move from drama to voice to comic easily. Her first break was Gertrude Gearshift in a 1937 episode of the Jack Benny program that was supposed to be a one-off. And then the writers liked it. Well, she and Sarah Bernhardt. And they decided to bring him back as a recurring role starting in the 45-46 season. And they did approximately 130 appearances through the end of the radio run 55 as those 2 operators. And then her first real recurring role, again, this is aside from the Verna Felton, she was a regular on Lux. She became Blanche Morton on the Burns and Allen show beginning in 42 and running through that show's end. Added Millicent Carstairs at the back end of World War II on Fibber McGee and Molly. On the Day in the Life of Dennis Day, she played Clara Anderson. And then Amy Lipscott on is My Friend Irma. And then she, too, moved on to become Eve Goodwin's Leroy school principal and sometimes love interest for Gildersleeve from September 43 through January 49. January 48, she starred with Gail Gordon on My Favorite Husband, playing his wife Iris Atterbury. This is a foreshadowing hint, by the way, through that show's run in 51. And again, doing all of this while also doing little bit pieces here and there as a stock person. She performed in as many as 5 shows a day. And so she wouldn't even be able to rehearse with Jack Benny and would walk into the live show, be handed a script, and she would do her Gertrude Gearshift for the first time live on radio. That's how good of an actress she is. And her second marriage was to Eugene Twomby, the longtime sound effects man for the Jack Benny show. And he ended up passing away the day after her funeral in October of 68. So they were literally together to the end. Now, what was the turn this took? So Lucille Ball famously wanted her cast from My Favorite Husband to just move to TV to do I Love Lucy, except for Richard Denny, who she wanted to be her husband. She wanted to work with Desi. But Gail Gordon was under contract to do the television of Our Miss Brooks. B. Benaderet was under contract to do the Burns and Allen show, and the network would not let them work the extra show. Now, part of this obviously is TV takes a lot more rehearsal time. You've got to get the camera angles right. You've got to get your blocking right. You've got to do a lot more because it's visual than just read it. You know, you've got to memorize the scripts. You can't just read them off a page. You can't do what she did, you know, and walk in dead cold and know what to do in a TV show. So basically, in that transition from radio TV, you run all of these people that did all of this work, multiple shows at one time, gone instantly. A great disappearing act. They would all work in one, but they wouldn't work in 2 or 3 at the same time. And the only comparables I have in TV involve game shows. Richard Dawson was on Match Game and Family Feud at the same time. And then both Drew Carey and Ryan Stiles were on the Drew Carey show and Whose Line Is It Anyway at the same time. And that's almost cheating because the game shows could do, you know, almost a month's worth of episode in a weekend, and then you would be free to do the rest of the shows that you were supposed to do during the week. And then the closest that really is Lisa Kudrow played Ursula Buffet on Mad About You, then transitioned to her twin sister Phoebe on Friends, but there were only 10 episodes that overlapped in the time frame that both shows were on. So there was a semi little bit of the same thing going on with her. Summer Replacement Series in 1950. So I told you there was a interesting little fact that came up. Gail Gordon and B. Benaderet were cast as a husband-wife that was patterned directly off of their Atterbury characters on My Favorite Husband. He was a banker, she was the wife. They had to change the name and give this a plot. And this is B's one and only full-fledged starring role on radio. Louise Erickson, the second Marjorie on The Great Gildersleeve, following the departure of Lorraine Tuttle, as their teenage daughter. See if this plot sounds familiar. This New York banker, John Granby, fed up with the city and goes out and becomes a farmer. Their daughter dates the country agricultural commissioner. They hire a farmhand named Ebb, played by Parley Bear. Variety's review, a brave but futile effort to put together a situation comedy around Gail Gordon. The show was called Granby's Green Acres. And that's where I had never heard of this show before. I was fascinated of all of these similarities, and it didn't end there. Paul Henning was a script writer for Burns and Allen and became great friends with Bea Benaderet during that time. Totally admired her work. And he created a little show called the Beverly Hillbillies on TV. And Bea Benaderet wanted badly to be Granny. And she auditioned. But then they auditioned Irene Ryan. And both of them said, that is Granny. So they cast Bea. He wrote the part of the cousin, Aunt Pearl, or the Aunt Pearl, for Bea Benaderet so she could at least make some guest appearances on that show. The Beverly Hillbillies comes a great big huge success. Green light for a second TV show for Paul Henning. Enter Petticoat Junction in 1963, and so he writes the part of Kate Bradley specifically for Bea Benaderet. It would be her last thing she does. She dies in one of the last seasons of the show. Straight dramatic role, not, pretty much. A little bit of comedy in there, but totally different than anything you've heard of her on radio, if you remember the series. With 2 successes comes a third opportunity. And he gives the third opportunity to a colleague, Jay Summers, who decides he's going to adapt a TV version of Granby's Green Acres, which failed miserably on radio. 8 episodes, summer only, 6 survive. Making that show, the TV show of Green Acres, a double spinoff for Bea Benaderet. It's a spinoff of Petticoat Junction and a spinoff of her radio show. And that's where I got fascinated by this, that you could have a double spinoff for Bea Benaderet off of this little radio show. And then, remember I said that the radio show starred, what's her name? Louise Erickson, and who had replaced Lorraine Tuttle. Well, Lorraine Tuttle became an acting coach, and one of her students was a young actor named Tom Lester, who became Eb Dawson, the farmhand on Green Acres. And there was just too much to tie in here. So I went and found that episode of Granby's Green Acres. I've not even heard it yet, but I thought we should play it together. So if you're ready, we'll have a listen to Granby's Green Acres pilot episode.
Granby's Green Acres. Starring Gail Gordon as John Granby. Bea Benaderet as his wife, Martha. Shirley Mitchell as daughter, Janice. And Parley Bear as Eb, the hired hand.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you for a minute. I was busy writing a story for next week's issue of the Doveville Clarion. I'm Dave Winslow, editor of the Clarion. Doveville is a nice little community. Got a healthy climate. It's 2.5 inches above sea level. We got a church, a firehouse, a school, and a railroad station. Someday, we hope to get a railroad. Well, anyway, this story I'm writing is a human interest feature called Man with a Bee in His Bonnet. It's about a city fella named John Granby.
Martha?
Yes, John.
Worked in a bank in the city and had one of them real banking kind of minds.
Martha, I've just been going over our household accounts.
John, you've just finished eating dinner. Let it digest.
Martha, do you realize that last month you spent $56 more than I made?
Oh, I don't see how that could be, John. Every time I made out a check, I entered it in the checkbook. It came out exactly even.
Even?
Well, yes. At the end of the month, there was one stub for every check.
What am I going to do with you? We plan a budget and you promise me faithfully that you'll stick to it. But you just ignore the budget and spend more and more money. Martha, how can you be such a Democrat?
John, I do my best, but prices are so high.
Martha, let's face it. The price of food wouldn't be any problem to us if we'd done what I wanted to do 5 years ago and bought a farm. Why, now we'd be getting all our food for nothing.
John Granby, I can't understand you. You've got a good position, a home, a wife and a daughter, but you're always talking about throwing everything away to buy a farm.
But, honey, that's all I've ever dreamed about. Oh, I'm not denying that now I've got security, but I want more than that. I want to prove that I can make something of myself with my own hands, that I can succeed starting with nothing, just my brain.
What?
I can start with my brain, which is nothing. That is, my brain is something, but
John,
I thought I could start...
What are you trying to say?
That I want to have the feeling of accomplishing something. On a farm, I'd have that feeling. I'd take a seed, a tiny little seed, and I'd plant it in the ground. Then I'd cover it up with dirt. And then I'd water it. And pretty soon, what would I have?
A dirty little wet seed.
Martha, don't you understand? A farm would give me independence. If I need an apple, I can pick it. Or if I want a potato, I can dig it. Or if I want an egg...
You can lay it.
I can lay it. Oh, of course not. No. Oh, this is ridiculous. Simply ridiculous.
What's ridiculous, Dad?
Oh, Janice, I want to ask you a question.
Okay, Dad.
Remember, I want you to think very carefully before you give me an answer.
Okay.
What do you think of the idea of our moving to a farm?
I think it's ridiculous, stupid, and impractical.
Janice, when I want your opinion, I'll ask you.
But, Dad, you said
Now, let's not have any arguing. Now, John, you read your paper, and Janice and I will do the dinner dishes.
Oh, well, I did them already, Mom.
Oh, well, thank you, dear.
That's okay. Say, Mom, what kind of meat was that we had? I never tasted anything like it.
Oh, that wasn't meat.
It wasn't? It tasted just like it.
It was a rutabaga burger.
A rutabaga burger?
I found the recipe in the Ladies' Home Journal.
Oh, sounds more like something you'd find in Popular Mechanics.
Well, dear, I told you prices today are just impossible.
Oh, they sure are. How much did you say steak was the last time you bought it?
$1.27 a pound.
$1.27 a pound? Why, I wouldn't pay that for meat if they sliced it off Betty Grable.
John.
Well, prices like that are just ridiculous.
Well, if you think that's ridiculous, butter is 93 cents a pound.
Sometimes it's been $1.
Oh, I can't believe it. After all, what is butter? Just milk that's been pushed too far?
Dad is right. Maybe you ought to let him buy a farm.
Now, Janice, your father and I have already settled that.
I was just kidding.
Well, it's nothing to kid about. I think it's a wonderful idea.
No, John.
But, Martha, if you'd only let me...
John, I refuse to argue the point anymore. If you feel that you've got to plant something, buy yourself a flower pot.
A power plot? A flower pot? I'm talking about something bigger.
To buy a window box.
A window box? Well, what's so funny?
I thought you were going to say window walks.
Why should I say window walks?
Well, you said power plot.
Oh, well, that was a mistake. Now, where was I? Where was I?
Talking about a window box.
Oh, yes. Well, maybe I will buy a window box. Oh, well, all right. I'll show you that even when it comes to small-scale cultivation, you can save money. Now, that ought to convince you.
John, you've been talking this way for years. What is it that makes you so anxious to be a farmer?
Oh, I don't know. I guess that it's just like they say. When you gotta grow, you gotta grow.
Well, by now I guess you know why I call this here story in the Clarion Man with a Bee in his bonnet. Mr. Granby is the bee, and the bee he's got is the farmin' bee. The only trouble was that every time he tried to stick his head out of the hive, Mrs. Granby sprayed him with DDT. Of course, that didn't kill the bee. It just took a little of the buzz out of his stinger. A window box ain't a farm, but then half a loaf is better than none.
Good day, sir. What can I do for you?
Do you carry window boxes?
Well, certainly. If they're not too heavy.
I beg your pardon?
It was a little joke. Yes, sir, we have about as fine an assortment of window boxes as you'll find in any garden supply store in the city.
Good. I'll take one.
All right. Now, will there be anything else?
Yes, I'd like some dirt for it.
Dirt? Well, I guess we can dig some up for you.
What kind do you have?
Well, it's brown. And it's got, well, when you shovel it up, it'll, brown. And well, it looks like, it's dirt.
Oh, but there are all different kinds. You see, I'm interested in farming, and I've done a great deal of reading about soil.
How fascinating.
Yeah. The pH of the soil has a great deal to do with how well a plant will grow.
Really?
pH is a chemical term which indicates whether the soil is too acid or too alkaline.
Well, I don't know what ours is, but I'll be glad to let you taste some.
That won't be necessary. I'll test it when I get it home, and then if it's too acid, I can always alkalize it.
What do you do, give each plant an Alka-Seltzer?
No, you don't do anything like that.
Well, I should hope not. That fizzing might drive a geranium out of its mind.
Well, I'm not going to plant flowers, you see, only vegetables. Which reminds me, I'd better buy some seeds.
Certainly. What kind do you want?
I told you, vegetable.
I know, but what kind of vegetables?
Oh, well, I don't know. I haven't got too much room. Say, how about picking out one seed of each?
One seed of each?
Yes. What would you suggest?
You wouldn't do it anyway. Wait here, I'll go back and pick them up.
Well, sir, Mr. Granby took his window box home and went to work planting his midget garden. About 2 months later...
Say, Say, Mom, it's getting late. Aren't you going to cook dinner tonight?
No, dear, your father's cooking it.
Dad? Oh, I hope we survive.
No! I hope he survives. That's about the 5th time he's burned himself.
What's the occasion?
It's harvest time. Your father picked all the vegetables in his window box today, and he insisted on cooking them himself.
Oh, no!
Come and get it.
We're coming, dear. Come along, Janice.
All right.
Well, it's all finished. Now, sit down.
Yeah. Thank you, dear. Would you like me to serve?
No, I'll do it in a moment. But first, I want to point something out. These 2 casseroles contain the results of my first vegetable crop. The total cost was approximately 4 cents a pound, which is 10 cents cheaper than they can be bought in any market. I hope I've proved my point.
Well, you certainly have, dear.
Good for you, Dad.
Thank you. Now, Martha, if you'll pass your plates, I'll begin serving.
Oh, here they are, John.
There's Janice's.
Thank you.
Yours, dear.
Thank you.
Now mine. There. I hope you 2 feel as good about this as I do, because it kind of makes us all members of the farming fraternity. This is the kind of meal that millions of farm families sit down to every night.
I can't believe it.
You can't believe what?
That so many people can live on 2 peas and a string bean.
Well, with the harvest over, Mr. Granby settled down to the normal routine of his business at the bank.
Hello, dear.
Oh, John, where have you been all day? I called the bank and they said you were out.
Well, I told you last night I had to go up to Doveville on business. Saw Mr. Parker about making a collection on his note. I went out to his farm.
Oh, did everything work out for you?
Oh, of course. Although that Parker was a pretty shrewd article. When I got to his place and told him I was from the bank, he wouldn't let me in. Turned his police dog loose on me.
Oh, my.
But I wasn't going to let any mutt frighten me off. I looked him right in the eye and walked past him. I showed him who was the master.
Yes. Well, dear, sit down. You must be tired.
No, it hurts less if I stand. Well, I finally got Parker to let me in the house. I didn't waste any time. Parker, I said to him, you owe the City National Bank some money, and unless you pay, we're going to take over your farm. He finally saw the light.
And he paid you the money?
No, I bought the farm.
You are listening to Granby's Green Acres, starring Gail Gordon. Now here is part 2.
Well, Mr. Granby finally did it. He quit his job at the bank and bought a farm near our town of Doveville. That was about one of the biggest news stories I printed in the Clarion in a long while. About a month later, he and his family set out for the new house.
Ah, what a day! What a day! Well, Martha, we'll soon be there. Will you please stop that crying? You've been doing it ever since we left.
Oh, now, Dad, don't nag Mom. She feels terrible. After all, she's just left a home she's lived in for 20 years. She's left her friends, everything.
Well, so have I, and I'm not crying. I'm happy. See, Martha, I'm laughing. Ha ha! Goodness sake.
Oh, Dad, how could you do a thing like this?
How could I do a thing like this? You and your mother talked me into it. Prices are too high, you said. On a farm, we'd get free butter and vegetables, you said.
Dad, we didn't mean you had to run right out and buy a farm. Why, you never even let Mother or me see it.
Well, I wanted it to be a surprise.
Oh, some surprise. How do we know what kind of a place you've bought? Why, it might even be like this one we're coming to down the road. Look at that old broken-down house. It's overrun with weeds. The barn is sagging. It needs paint. And look at that... Dad, why are you stopping here? Is there something wrong with the car?
No, Janice.
Dad, you mean...
Welcome home! Now, just let me unlock the front door. Having a minute here. There. Well, Martha, shall I carry you over the threshold? That's funny. She did the same thing on our honeymoon. Look, Martha. Cheer up. It's going to be all right. Now, come on, let's have a smile. That's it. Now, let me get my handkerchief and wipe away those tears. There we are. Now blow. Martha! Oh, that was just the bus going down the road.
You're such a little boy. Giving up your job, putting most of our savings into this place. But I guess it'll work out.
Why, of course it will. Now, come on, let me show you around. Now, go through here. Now, this is the kitchen.
Oh, my, it's large.
Sure. So wait till our furniture gets here. Won't it look swell with the refrigerator over there, the electric stove over there, the dishwasher there?
Dad, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Why, of course not. Go right ahead.
Where are the electrical outlets?
The electrical outlets? Why, they're, well, they should, well, they're usually,
John, there aren't any outlets. And I don't see any lights either.
No electricity? Or preposterous. How did Mr. Parker shave?
Dad, this may come as a surprise to you, but there are a lot of homes in this country that don't have electricity.
Well, what about Hoover Dam? And vice versa.
Dear, there doesn't seem to be any gas either. How am I going to do the cooking?
Well, I don't know. I'll see. Oh, so there are no electrical outlets, eh? What's this hole down here near the baseboard? Just let me put my hand in there and
Dad, what happened? Did you get a shock?
No, a mouse bit me.
A mouse?
Oh, Dad! Mother's fainted! Get some water!
Okay, there's a pump outside. I'll get some. Water. Oh, here's the pump. What's the matter with this darn thing?
Hello?
Need some help?
No. Appears to me like you do.
Will you please leave me alone? My wife has fainted. I need some water.
You ain't going to get any from that pump.
Why not?
She needs priming.
Well, what do I prime it with?
Water.
How can I prime it with water if I haven't got any water?
Get some.
Where?
There's a pump 3 miles down the road.
Oh, well, I'll get in my car and drive right down there.
It ain't worth it.
Why not?
That pump needs priming, too.
Well, where can I get the water to prime that pump to get the water to prime this pump?
6 miles down the road.
Are you sure that pump doesn't need priming, too?
Yeah.
What makes you so positive?
It's a well.
Look, this is an emergency. I've got to get some water for my...
I'll get it for you.
Yeah, oh, well, that's very neighborly of you, Mr.
Name's Eb.
Eb, yeah.
Used to work on this place for old man Parker. You need a hard hand?
No, I don't, no.
Okay, I'll get the water anyway.
Well, thanks. I'll appreciate...
Dad, Mother's come too.
Oh, thank goodness. I'd better go in and see her.
Well, I don't think I would just now. Give her a little while to cool off.
But, Janice...
Now, look, if you want to do something, why don't you see if you can find us some sort of a stove to cook on?
All right, dear, yes. Stove. Now, where can I get a stove?
Here's your water.
Oh, thanks very much. Wait a second. I thought you said the well was 6 miles down the road.
It is.
Then how did you get the water so quickly?
I had it in my car.
In your car? Why didn't you say so?
You didn't ask me.
Oh!
Well, I guess I'll be going. You sure you don't need no hard men?
I'm positive. I'm perfectly... Wait a minute. Didn't you say you used to work for old man Parker?
Yeah.
Say, what did he use to cook with?
A stove.
I assumed that, but what kind?
Wood burner.
Well, do you know where I could get one?
I think Parker left his old one down behind the barn.
He did? Great. Say, would you give me a hand getting it into the house?
You still don't want to hire me?
No.
For a man who ain't hired, I sure am doing a lot of work.
And so Mr. Granby settled down into the routine of farm life. And one morning, weeks later...
John, wake up.
What's the matter?
The rooster is crowing.
Well, turn it off.
John, will you please get up? It's 4:30.
4:30? What's the matter with you, Martha? I don't have to get to the bank till 9.
You don't work in a bank anymore. You own a farm, remember? Now get up.
All right. Oh, I could have slept if it hadn't been for that darn rooster. Shut up! I never seem to get enough.
John, what's the matter?
My pants are cold.
Will you please get a move on? Eb is waiting for you to help him with the milking.
Oh, that Eb is some hired man. I hired him to help me, and I end up helping him.
John, will you please hurry?
I am. Let me wash up.
Well, there's water in the pitcher. Just pour it into the bowl.
Okay. Oh, Don.
What's the matter? Can't you find the washcloth?
I've got the washcloth, but where's the ice pick?
John, will you...
I'm going.
Morning, Mr. Granby.
Good morning.
Sleep well?
What I did of it, yes. Come on, Eb, let's get going.
Rag mop.
Eb, you have to be so cheerful.
Well, I feel good. It's going to be a beautiful day.
How can you tell? The moon is still out. Oh, here's the barn.
Your boss is waiting for us. You want to try milking her this morning, Mr. Granby?
Oh, of course. How am I going to learn if I don't try? Whoa. Let me see. Put my hands here.
A little further forward.
I know. Now I pull down like this. She's empty.
she ain't empty. You ain't doing it right. Here, let me show you. So, bossy. So. All right, now watch me. When you pull down, you move your fingers like this. See?
Show off.
Now you try.
Okay. You just... I don't think she likes me.
Of course she does. Now just keep at it.
All right.
Gently. You ain't pulling taffy.
I'm being as gentle as I can. Whoa!
Go on, try her again.
Yeah.
There.
Well, I guess I'm getting the hang of it. You get it, Em? I'm milking the cow and I said I'm getting the hang of it?
Just keep milking.
Oh, all right. Well, here's the milk, Martha. 4 gallons again today.
Oh, that's fine, dear.
Put it down over there, Dad.
Yeah, this is what you wanted, Martha. Milk to make your own butter. Free. Say, I'm hungry. Is there anything in the icebox?
Yes, 200 pounds of butter.
What?
Dad, can't you sell this milk somewhere?
Well, I've tried to, but the dairy won't buy milk from you unless you have a special kind of cow barn. And that costs $8,000.
Oh, dear.
Dad, Mother and I have been talking, and we think you should put this place up for sale.
You're not serious.
Well, Dad, you're just not cut out to be a farmer.
But I haven't had a real chance to try it. I haven't even planted a crop yet.
Dad, look, I've been talking to Eb. He says the land on this farm has been overworked. The soil needs care. It'll take too much time and money.
Oh, what does Eb know about farming?
Well, he's lived on one all his life.
Yeah? Well, I've got booklets from the Department of Agriculture. Now, look. I'll make you a sporting proposition. You say nothing can grow on this farm. Well, I'll bet you that I can plant a crop and harvest it. If that fails, I'm willing to admit that I was wrong and sell it.
Oh, Dad, you're just
Now, wait a moment, Janice. I'll take that bet, John.
But, Mother...
Janice, it's what your father wants.
But, Mom, you...
Janice, I'm surprised at you. Has your father ever let us down?
Well, no,
Of course he hasn't. And I don't think he will now. All his life, he's had his heart set on owning a farm. If the worst comes to the worst, we can always go back to the city and he can get a job. But first, I think we should give him a few months to make good.
And so Mr. Granby went to work to prove to his wife and daughter that he could make a go of the farm. Morning, noon, and night, he worked in the fields, hoeing, milking, shoveling, pumping, raking, and inside of a month, single-handed, he got the following result.
It's a badly sprained back, Mrs. Granby. You'll have to stay in bed for 6 weeks.
Poor Mr. Granby. He stayed flat on his back for almost 2 months. Eb tended to things for him, and then came the day he could get up and look at his crop.
Martha, would you please get me my shoes? I left them downstairs.
All right, dear.
Oh, boy, this is the day. Just wait till you see that field I planted. I'll show you if I'm a farmer or not.
Yes, dear.
Well, get my shoes!
All right.
How's Dad?
He's yelling again, so he must be better. He wants to go down and see the field he planted.
Mom, does he know?
No. I couldn't bear to tell him while he was in bed suffering that way.
Nothing grew. Not even a weed.
Eb said he did his best, but... Oh, Janice, I just don't know what this disappointment will do to your father.
Well, Mom, if something did grow in that field, you know what it would mean. We'd be stuck here on this farm.
Well, yes, but I wouldn't mind, just as long as your father was happy. Somehow I've got a lot of confidence in him. I think he can make a go of this farm.
Mom, listen. Can you stall him for a half hour?
Well, I think so, dear, but why?
I've got to get to that vegetable store in town. Stall him as long as you can.
Martha, can't you walk any faster?
Oh, yes, dear, but I'm worried about your back.
Well, never mind my back. If I didn't know you better, I'd think you were trying to stall.
Why, John, why should I do that?
I don't know. Where's Janice?
Well, I think she went down to the field to meet us. Oh, yes, there she is. Janice!
Hello. Dad, I came down
Janice, will you get out of my way? I can't... Martha, look! There are things growing. Growing things. They're growing. Growing things. They're growing.
Yes, dear.
And you two said that this land wasn't any good. But I told you I'd make things grow. I told you.
Oh, you sure did,
Yes,
Dad.
just look at that field. Little green things sticking their heads above the ground. I've got to pick one.
Oh, John, be careful of your back.
Look, Martha, a carrot. It's amazing. Simply amazing.
But why is it amazing? You planted a seed, covered it with dirt, watered it, and pretty soon, what do you get? A carrot.
Well, that's what's so amazing about it. This is where I planted tomatoes.
You have just heard the first episode of Granby's Green Acres, starring Gail Gordon. Granby's Green Acres was written and directed by Jay Summers. Music was composed and conducted by Opie Cates. This is Bob Lamont speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
And there we have it. Any thoughts, questions? If not, we can just move on with the business portion of the meeting, I guess, Frank.
Jeff,
Go ahead.
I noticed that there was a lot of silence in there. Is that because this was a pilot and they
Yes.
had not integrated the music and the sound effects?
Yep.
and
Yep.
Stuff?
So they had, I think they had room for stuff, and they were trying to feel out the show. I also didn't realize Jay Summers wrote the radio version and he just adapted it for TV. So that's pretty fascinating too, to the very end there. So I learned that listening to the episode for the first time myself.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah, when I did my program on B. Benedert, I listened to several of the episodes, not that one, but others. And they were, with the sound effects, with the music, the show wasn't that good, but they were, it was tolerable, but it was not, it just wasn't successful. It didn't have an audience draw, and it was a shame because it paired two of the best
But
of their
probably four of the best. I mean, if you think about it, Polly Bear's not a bad supporting actress. Neither is whatever her name was. But it kind of reminds me of the Judy Canova show. If it wasn't for Judy Canova, that thing is cast beautifully. You've got Verna Felden again as her aunt, and you've got Mel Blanc running through that whole thing, and you think, God, how can this be a bad show? Well, that one was bad because of Judy herself, in my opinion. But this one, you sit there and you go, they've got everything they need, obviously, but not good writing or something. Or it's also 1950 and people are turning off of radio and on to television. So, you got a little bit of both things happening at the same time, I think.
Well, and they also had Bob Lamond, who was the announcer on My Favorite Husband,
right?
Where
so
they
brought him over
they played
too.
the Atterbury. Yeah,
yeah. It was basically a direct ripoff of the Atterbury stuff, other than they had to make up a plot for it. Anything else? Anybody?
It seemed like there were some old jokes in there.
I don't know if they were new at the time or if they were old at the time.
I think they might have been old at the time.
There were a couple of good ones in there, and then there was a couple of groaners.
But it is still funny, that connection with E. Benaderet with Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, I mean, it is. That's what fascinated me, is really a double spinoff for B. Benaderet. Because he then sets the thing in Hooterville, and she co-starred. She makes guest appearances on it 5 or 6 times on the TV show, and this thing just didn't stop unraveling. So
yeah, Jeff,
that's the left turn this thing made on me. Go ahead, John.
I'm wondering if the flexibility that these actors had in radio translated into flexibility on television, even though it was different, something that you really could not get today.
Well, I think that like B. Benaderet had never done a hillbilly accent before and learned to do one to start that thing with as Aunt Pearl. So she at least had those kind of chops. Gail Gordon, the other throwaway from Gail Gordon is he's the only person besides Lucy herself to appear on every one of her TV shows. He had 2 guest appearances on the I Love Lucy, and then he basically starred in the rest of them with her. So that's she really liked him a lot, obviously. So
Jeff, when you talk about that, B. Benaderet was the only actor other than Burns and Allen to appear in every one of the Burns and Allen television shows.
Yeah, that's true too. Because I think there were 4 people that played her husband, if I recall correctly. They were in and out of that show pretty quickly. And then the other tie-in for that, I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, is when Gracie decided to quit television, quit entertaining. And of course, George wasn't done and he wanted to do something. He wrote the pilot for a TV show. And it has to be one of the absolute best pilots I've ever watched in my life, though the show itself, fair. But if you go back and watch the pilot, you realize that George wrote it. And that's Mr. Ed. It's a fascinating first episode, and you could just tell it's got George's handprints all over the thing. If you follow the way that the TV show went, and that kind of breaking the fourth wall and doing all that kind of stuff, it just kind of rolled perfectly into his Mr. Ed thought process. So if you can find that first episode, hilarious, because it starts. There's the music, but no singing. You don't know Mr. Ed talks, and it's the discovery of the horse, the discovery of the talking, and all of that stuff, and it's incredibly funny. I actually think it's one of the best first episode TV shows around.
Sponsored by Studebaker.
There you go. There's a name you don't hear much anymore. All of those early TV stuff and those, going back to the radio, because that they were all the same. It's the same thing. We can almost do the same thing with the cartoons. B. Benaderet was probably just as prominent at Warner Brothers as Mel Blanc. She just didn't have the credit. She played almost every female role opposite Mel until June Foray came along in the 50s.
Well, and then including on the Flintstones.
Yeah, she was doing that, and then got swept up into all, basically because that part was written for her, moved over to the Petticoat Junction.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thanks for bearing with me. I thought that was just a really interesting little twist of things that comes together at the end of their radio careers.
All right, then I guess that moves us back to Sally. And if she's ready to go over the answers to the quiz, let's see how they did on the poll.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to end the poll now. And then I'm going to, okay, can everyone see the results?
Yeah, we can.
Great, okay.
Thank you very much. Excellent. All right. Everyone, get out your answer sheets. Get your colored pencils out. No cheating now. We've all signed the honor pledge. And I'm pulling up my answers. Okay, number 1. Minera Pius, kind of funny for being riotous, as Mrs. Nussbaum on Allen's Alley. But what was her first name? And the write-in of flower does not count. Looks like a few people picked A and B, Rose and Daisy. We had a good chunk go for D, Violet. The majority went for C, Pansy. And the correct answer is C, Pansy. Pansy is her name. Number 2. Jack Benny did several takeoff sketches based on Allen's Alley, but what did he call them? Was it Benny's Broadway, Boulevard, Backstreet, or Backyard? A few of us picked C and D, Backstreet and Backyard. Nobody picked Benny's Broadway? What? What? Not his Broadway? Well, good, because that was not the correct answer. The correct answer is the majority B, Benny's Boulevard. Number 3. He began his career in silent movies, served as the mayor of Palm Springs, then played the father of Gail Storm in the radio and television comedy My Little Margie. Who was this? Well, no one thought it was D. Charles Jones, but we were kind of spread all over the place, split between A and B, William Boyd or William Demarest. And then we had a majority go for C, Charles Farrell, and the majority does get to win this time again. C, Charles Farrell. Number 4. She played Mother on Father Knows Best, and later was the voice of a lead on TV's The Flintstones. Who was this? Ooh, we were again all over the place. Few of us went for A, C, and D, Frances Robinson, Ann Whitfield, or Leslie Woods. The majority went for B, Jean Vanderpyle. And this time, again, the majority does take it. B is the correct answer, Jean Vanderpyle. Number 5. Gildersleeve. One of Gildersleeve's Jolly Boys was also the voice of Elmer Fudd. That's why I had to listen to me. But which one was it? Nobody thought it was B on the poll. Nobody thought it was B, Chief Gates or Ken Christie. One went for Judge Hooker, Earl Ross. And we were kind of split between C and D. Mr. Peavy, Richard LeGrand, or Floyd Munson, Arthur Q. Bryan. But the correct answer is D. Floyd Munson, Arthur Q. Bryan. Number 6. He played Oogie Pringle, the most ridiculous name, on A Date with Judy, but was better known for playing Walter Denton on Our Miss Brooks. Who was he? No one went for D. Jack Grimes. We had a few go for Jackie Kelk or Bob Hastings, but most everyone recognized A. Richard Crenna as our correct answer. A. Number 7. He played Perry White, the editor of the Daily Planet, on Superman. Great Caesar's Ghost. Who was he? Ooh, we were very split. Only one person thought it was D. Bill Foreman. But we were very much split between A, B, and C. Bud Collier, Julian Noah, and Jackson Beck. And the correct answer is B, and I think we just needed to reverse the names. Noah Julian. Maybe? Or is it Julian Noah? You have it both ways, right? Help me out here. Or not. That's cool.
Yeah, Julian Noah.
Okay.
Well, that was a close tie. Yeah,
Was-
Jackson Beck was the narrator.
Almost fooled people. All right, number 8. Go. Number 8. Every week, he pitched the Anchor Hawking products and introduced the program Casey Crime Photographer. Does anybody else ever look up to see if these products still exist? Just me? And Lauren? No? Okay. Who introduced the program Casey Crime Photographer? Nobody thought it was Andrew Toney. Oh, how I certainly got tricked by this one. Just kind of slid it right in there. Someone else clearly went for the fine acting chops of Miller Lite. You know, star player there. Very well done. But the majority went for Marvin Miller, but some of us went for Tony Marvin. So this time, I'm sorry, but the majority does not win. It is B, Tony Marvin. Tony Marvin. Number.
If I can say, if our members would look at our Facebook page, Tony Marvin was one of the persons that we posted this past week and talked about him on Casey. So yeah.
Yes, many of these names are seeming very familiar. So when I say do your homework, I mean do your homework. Read the Facebook page. Lots of good stuff. Thank you, Frank, for reminding us. Number 9. This cute couple broadcasts over 1,000 episodes from San Francisco, and by 1930 had an audience in excess of 15 million. Who were they? Oh, we didn't study. We weren't sure. We were all over the place. Spread between Burns and Allen, Colmar and Kilgallen. I don't know. They didn't have a cutesy name, but the Aces, or John Coogan and Helen Troy. We were all over the place. Well, the correct answer is good job, 2 people who voted for D, because that is the correct answer. Number 9 is D, John Coogan and Helen Troy. Well done. Give yourself a star. Number 10. During its 9 years on the radio, this musical director developed various versions of the Gunsmoke theme. Who was he? I'm very sorry to tell the one person who selected Amerigo Marino, but you are incorrect, and you clearly like yours truly, Johnny Dollar. I am also sorry to tell the 3 people who picked Jerry Goldsmith that while you have very good taste in musical directors, you can join me in celebrating Star Trek. And for the 3 people that selected Ray Block, I don't know what you were thinking. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't have something clever to say to you except that maybe just no. But to the 9 of you that selected Rex Corey, well done, because that is the correct answer. C. Rex Corey. And there you have it. Did you catch that name? If you didn't, please read the Facebook page, because Frank posts about interesting radio personalities every single day. You will learn so much and be ready for our next quiz. Hint, hint! Class dismissed.
Thank you so much, Sally. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the poll, and then let's see. Okay, so stop sharing, and now I'm going to pause the recording. Okay.
And just in case anybody is interested, John Coogan oh shucks, Sally, no. In any event, that goes back to a presentation I made a year or so ago, Cecil and Sally. So, here we go. All right. I guess I'll first talk about as recorder. There were no corrections to the, yes, there was a correction to the last minutes from Karl. So I've made those corrections and submitted them to Wendy. As to our programs, we've got a lot of good programs coming up. Next month, going to have Lawrence Kondrick is going to present the first 15, which will be a sample of those marvelous Miller melodies from his civilian band's Chesterfield broadcast.
Frank, you've got them backwards.
Oh, okay. Corrected that for me.
Okay.
Thanks,
all right.
Lawrence.
I'll go ahead and tell you what I'm going to be doing. I am doing both programs. I'm doing the first 15, and I've titled that, and now a word from our sponsor, AFVN, Armed Forces Vietnam Radio and Television Network. So I will be I will be playing a selection of what in the States would be commercials, but we don't have commercials when you're over in a war zone. So we have what in the States you might call PSAs, and I will be playing you a selection of those. You could only have heard them if you were in the war zone. And I will have some commentary as well as a selection of visuals, most of which are photographs that I took. So there'll be a personal aspect to that. And the main presentation is Glenn Miller signing off, because December 15th is the 80th anniversary of Glenn Miller's disappearance over the English Channel. And what I will do, this will actually be, in a sense, a 2-part program. The first part of it I will do using as a vehicle of the marvelous Miller medleys. I will give you a quick, compact intro to, I should say, summary of the bands that he led while he was alive. And the second half will be the absolute final program, which is a program of Ice from the series of I Sustain the Wings, which is the final broadcast of his Army Air Forces Overseas Orchestra, which was held in end of 1945 right here in Washington at Boeing Air Force Base. So that will be the main program that I'll be presenting next week. The first half obviously is more of a tribute to Veterans Day, but there's the carryover between the anniversary of Glenn Miller's death in December, which of course we will be having our annual get together, our luncheon, and then there will be a carryover, obviously, in a sense, to Veterans Day also. But anyway, that is the program.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for correcting me. All right, now we come to December, and that will be the holiday luncheon. It is now confirmed for Saturday, December the 7th. Obviously, there'll be more details coming forth, but for now, just mark your calendars for December the 7th. January, we have Dr. coming to present on Kathy Lewis. February, we have Larry Zeb is going to present on OTR giveaways, and he has got a collection that you'll enjoy seeing, and he'll talk all about them. March, Joe Webb will give us a program. He hasn't given me a title yet, but we all know that Dr. Joe has very interesting material when he presents to us. April, the meeting will be a presentation by Michael Henry about the program Vox Pop. Now, I'm pleased to say that in May, John William DeClaris is going to give us a presentation on a rural line in education. And June will be our spring luncheon. And I'm also pleased to announce that member Lauren Kraut is going to do the July presentation on Phil Harris. So we've got a lot of good programs coming up for the next, well into next year. So, look forward to Lawrence's program next month. And, we'll go into 2025 with a lot of material to take us through.
Hey, Frank, do we know where
Yes.
the luncheon is yet? Do we know where the luncheon is?
I'm sorry. We're back at Kilroy's.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Yeah, it will be at Kilroy's.
And do we know the April program, Frank? I think you skipped April.
No, April is going to be Michael Henry on Vox Pop.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions and thoughts about the programs?
Yeah, Frank, are you going to put together a PDF for the details of the luncheon, or just want me to say, same place, same gang, same time?
No, it's just a little early, John. I'll wait until the beginning of November before I start sending out
It's never too early to talk about food.
Well, you can post it on the website and it can be observed there, but no, I'll send out at least 2 or 3 notices about the luncheon. Okay.
This is Phil. I got a little comment.
Yes.
At the beginning of the presentation tonight, they show the radio and the TV. The radio that was shown was a 1939 Philco.
Sure was.
And I happen to have one of those, which I rented to the United States Army for their history through the eyes of the United States Army, and I later sold it to them so they could use it in their presentation. I don't know if they still do that show, but they used to give it around to Washington and Philadelphia and other places. And they used that because they wanted a radio that a family may have been listening to the Day of Infamy speech.
Mm.
And that was a 1939.
That's probably where I did searching for those old radios. I was trying to find the great big upright thing. I think that was the one I found. So it's cool that you have one, Phil. That's neat.
Well, I did have it. The Army has it now up at Fort Minor.
Still the same thing.
Yep.
It was in the family, so to
It's in
speak.
the family. And they had several models of that, depending on what chassis they had in that particular case. They had a kind of a heavy chassis and deluxe model, and then they had a cheaper one. So
for the TV,
Okay,
I almost,
if I can interrupt.
Go ahead.
If I can interrupt, we can save this conversation for the post meeting.
All right.
Because we want to move along now to the treasurer's report from Joni.
Yes. First off, I'll do membership. We haven't had any new members since our last meeting, and we still still have 106 paid members, but we're due to have another new member very soon. So as treasurer, we had receipts for the month of $67.28 and expenses of $125.16, which brings our balance to $3,473.69. And we have no outstanding debt. And that's all she wrote.
Okay, thank you, Joni. All right, John, where are you? Anything to say about the website?
It's the greatest website on the internet. No, everything is pretty well. It'll be updated tomorrow or Sunday, as soon as I get the link to the program from tonight. One thing I am going, I meant to do it for this month, but the synapse that was supposed to remind me didn't fire, it misfired or whatever. But I got a note that I'm going to stick to my forehead so that next month I put together a little spreadsheet that shows the number of views of our programs over the past couple of years. Yeah, because we put them out there on the internet. We wonder, does anybody actually look at them? And surprisingly, yes, they do. Don't know who they are, but people are watching, listening, enjoying, etc.
Go on.
Thank you, John. Thank you. All right, Sally, back to you. You can choose Facebook or Radio Recall, whichever you'd like to go first.
Okay, I'll start by just giving a quick report on our Facebook, which is going very strong. As of today, we have 293 members, which is awesome. And of course, every month, and I will continue to do it, I give a big shout out and a big thanks to Frank, because as I said, he does post something every single day about something interesting that's happened on radio or something that is interesting about a radio personality. So I really encourage you to check that out. I do moderate posts. They do not immediately show up. You need to be patient if you post something, because I work during the day and I don't have internet access in my school. So if I don't see it for a day or two, don't panic. Just, I'll get it up there. If it sat there for like a week, then, call the police and have them look for my body, because, then I probably am, decomposing in here, and you can write a suspense episode about it. Other than that, we're doing great on Facebook. It's going awesome. And I'm trying to tie us in a lot to some of the WAMU postings that they're doing for the 60th. And I think that actually has brought us some traffic as well, which is kind of nice. We do some cross sharing. So that is that. Let me pull up my other page here about Radio Recall. Now, everyone should have by now received their copy of the October Radio Recall, whether it was in mail or online. Awesome. Thank you for holding up that beautiful example. So yes, I sent them out this past weekend, and I received my paper copy this past weekend. So everything should be arriving to people. So we have this month is full of very exciting things. So thank you to people who are sending me things. I love it. And I already have some kind of promises of articles coming, and have even received an article for an upcoming issue. So very excited about that. Have received some interesting ideas, so might be seeing some new little bits and blurbs. If you have ideas or thoughts, anything, if please send them my way. I am desperate for material.
I owe you content,
Desperate.
Sally, so I'm in arrears. Apologies.
Apology accepted. Send me anything.
Sally?
Send me anything. Yes, Lawrence.
Yes. First of all, I want to compliment you on your article with regard to Wright Pat Air Force Base and
Thank you very
picking,
much.
and well, and picking my hometown's favorite son, Bob Hope, to feature. I did not realize that he had been honored down there. But I wanted to. There's a reason for. I wanted to add a comment here, an embellishment, because the bridge you mentioned was built during the 1930s. And the piers at each end, and especially on the east end, which is by Carnegie Avenue, have very large figures. They're kind of the figures that you have on the Oscar of the award that is given, that kind of a statue. That's sort of a generic statue, but they hold in their hands some item of transportation, and they are known as the guardians of transportation. Okay. Well, it turns out on the Carnegie end of the bridge, it happens to be right across from Progressive Field, the home of the now retitled Cleveland Guardians, who are playing for the American League Championship tomorrow. Okay,
Yeah.
Go Tribe. And I grew up with the Tribe, so it's got to be still Go Tribe. But anyway, but a second thing is Bob Hope. It's also aptly named because Bob Hope, in the late 40s and early 50s, when I was a little shaver, was a part owner of the then Cleveland Indians. And from radio standpoint, Bing Crosby was a part owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates in the National League. And they would jibe each other in the same manner that Benny and Allen did on their famous feud. And so Hope and Crosby would do, as they often did on some subject or another, they would jibe each other about baseball and about the progress or lack of progress of their respective teams. And you can find that on some of the old programs that one or the other you may still have. So
Lawrence, I would adore you would type that up. And I will include it as a letter to the editor, as a comment as to my thing, because I love including the letters to the editor with things that people comment about. When people send me a comment about things or the comments on Facebook, I'm like, yes, I'm including it in the letters to the editor because I don't want it to be the Sally show. I know poor Jack had to deal with that forever, but I don't think I'm as exciting as Jack was. So I would love to have other voices, and I would absolutely love it if you would type that up. And now everybody heard it, so now you got to do it.
I will be happy to do that.
Thank you.
And part also because I do not do social media, so whatever's on your Facebook page is a foreign language to me. So so I will be happy to communicate in our native language and do it in writing.
Love it. Email me. Beautiful.
Okay.
And everyone else, email me things too. Phil, yes.
The editor who shall not be named, sometimes those letters to the editors were written by the editor.
I am well aware. I'm well aware.
Oh no, I left the cat out of the bag.
But I am also trying to include and faithfully trying to include as many people beyond myself as I possibly can. And so I truly am trying to do that, and that's why I am trying to blend everything as much as possible, and that's why I put out a plea every month for material, because I think that it's, I mean, I just run out of time, and I cannot, change my writing voice interestingly enough to the point where you're like, oh, it's Sally again. Oh, God, it's Sally. Oh,
Yes.
I'm sick of her now. Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yes, I was the editor for a car club newsletter. I know the problem.
So I will continue to put out the plea and the smile and say please. Email me anything. So there you go. There's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you. Is Edgar? I don't see Edgar.
No, he's not, but he gave me a call, Frank, to give a quick update from the awards committee.
Okay, if you would, John.
Sure.
Yeah.
Does someone mind giving me a presentation option, please, for a second? I can whip through a quick slide deck just to show the process, and then I'll give it to Frank to publish out. And if we can't, I can just read it in the interest of time. I just sent a share
Oh,
request.
yeah, could you make John William
Did
a
I-
co-host?
I think I did. Wait, did I do it right? Oh, wait, let me see.
Yep, you did. You're
Okay.
good.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sure.
Can everyone see my screen?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
let me try one more thing.
Not yet.
Oh, nope,
Oh,
it's
no,
me.
here it
I
comes.
was the
Here it
bad-
comes.
There we
There
go.
you go.
I was the bad guy. Okay. We're going to go a quick review of what the ward committee process is sort of documented. We've been, and then some reminder of some key dates going on. But we're worked through the Quality Award first process, which is already based on the bylaws. So essentially, come on, there we go. Is there just a reminder, because they are in the bylaws, this is the process right now for the quality nominations. I'm not going to read it. You'll be able to read it in the minutes that are there. But essentially, it's the award is to display itself as devotion to the club. During October of each calendar year, we're going to canvass membership via email for nominations, and then nominating a candidate. That candidate must be a member in good standing. And then during November, all of the good members in good standing will receive an email ballot listing all the finalists with the rationale set forth in their selection. There will be a plurality of ballots cast to determine the winner. That year's honoree will get his or her name affixed to a permanent plaque award at the December club luncheon. And by tradition, the individual may be nominated next year, but win the award only once. What I'm going to talk through is just what is the nomination data real quick. Again, we'll need an email to the awards committee. I think that email address does not exist yet, but a request went to either Frank or John Abbott for the creation of an email address. We will get that out to everyone.
It does exist.
Okay. All right. We'll work through that. I don't have it. I scoured my email. I couldn't find it. Edgar was not here today. We'll work through that, everyone. My apologies. Again,
Basically, John, if somebody sends an email to awards at WMORTC.com, you'll get it.
okay. It's a war. We'll put it in there after that. Again, it's just an email to the awards committee, the name of the person or the nominee that you'd like to make, and then a small description of the reason behind the nomination. We just, suggested like 250 character limit for ease. Some key dates this year is the nomination cutoff will need to be by the 25th of October, please. I know it's a short turnaround of 14 days. Nominees will be announced at the November 8th meeting and the ballots will be sent. We ask that the ballots be received by November 15th, and so that the award presentation could be in person at the December meeting. And now that we have a date of December 7th, that is it. We kind of describe the process real quick, and again, it will be in notes that goes out. Looking at terms of who does what when. It's a question of the members start emailing nominations. The awards committee will collect them, will verify the memberships with club officers and the nominations. Ballot creation, distribute to the members. Members, please take your vote. Start casting them, send them to us by the 15th. We'll stop, we'll collect, we'll notify whatever officers that we need to for regarding the process, and then the award presentation. And I just wanted to give some time while everyone's energy was still there. If there are any questions whatsoever. Okay, no questions. I thank you all very much for your time. And again, that's the email address, as John said, it's awards at whatever the MWOTRC email address is, and we will get that out there. Thank you all very much for your time. Michael, I saw that you were online. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, you summed that up very well, sir. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, John William.
I am in the process of, I am sending an email to awards@MWOTRC.com as a test to make sure that you receive it. You don't have to let me know right away, but I'm just letting you know that I've just done that just now.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, officer nominations, John Nagel, you have a report, I know?
I do. Let's see. So the nominations for officers has been prepared and drafted and will go out by email in a few days. The announcement will state the 2-week turnaround for members to nominate their candidates for the offices that are listed in the bylaws. And this year, as was said before, the awards committee will be collecting nominations for the club awards and not the elections committee. And then for the elections part, after the nominations are received and verified, an electronic ballot will be created. This will allow members to vote electronically and anonymously. The link to the ballot will be distributed by email, just like the announcement for nominations. There will be, again, another 2-week window to vote. And once the window is closed, the votes will be tallied electronically and be available by the December luncheon. And that's all I've got.
All right, John, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, now, Sally, we'll come back to you for a second, if I may. There was a question on Facebook from a Claire Lorraine.
Right, yes. So, I'm just doing my due diligence because I received a question, on Facebook, through the community, and so I'm just doing my due diligence, but I brought it to our officers. I answered the question, but I feel that any questions pertaining to the club should be brought to the club. So, do you happen to have it right? Oh wait, I have it actually, Frank, sorry. Oh, no, I don't. Sorry, that was the wrong window. A lot of windows open for tonight's meeting. Here we go. Okay. So a Claire Lorraine, Laurain, which we could not find as a current club member. And if anyone is familiar with Claire, or Claire, if you're on the meeting, please make yourself known at this time. Okay, so Claire commented and asked, has anyone asked if we can go back to meeting in person? Just curious. And so I responded with a rather lengthy reply saying, hi, that's a comment that can be brought up at a meeting, because I was trying to kind of suss out if she was a member or not. To me asking this, she has not replied to my comment, by the way. I said, can you attend the next meeting? Otherwise, I'll bring up your comment and it can be discussed. However, as it stands at this point, we meet in person for our luncheons twice a year. All other meetings are held virtually, which have become successful from our pandemic era Zoom switching. There have been some technical challenges about being in person and on Zoom at the same time, which has been cited as a reason to stay meeting virtually for now. However, I look forward to our conversation at a future meeting, presumably if she was here to bring it up. So I just wanted to bring it up that the question was raised. I'm not making any sort of motions or movements. I am just for kind of inquiring if anyone knows this person. If she happens to be a member, we couldn't find her in our roles. And I mean, per the officers' discussion, Frank, if you want to take that, or I can just sort of wrap it up, that it seemed that my statement was pretty much in line with what we've been saying, that right now we would have to find a new location anyway, because the Trinity Church is no longer a viable option. And so that would completely be a whole different kind of ball game. And we've created this online virtual presence, which we would have to now find a balance of again, I think. So I think at this point the point is moot, but if someone wants to do something with it, I'm just leaving this here and then I'm backing away because I'm just doing my due diligence and then saying bye. about that.
Uh,
I have no.
I think you've done everything you can, Sally, with regard to it. And Wendy did make the comment, when it was brought to her attention that she's given me, that the problem of is the hybridization of the meetings. So far, we've not had great success. And again, as Sally mentioned, we have to find a new venue, because Trinity is no longer available. Now, another thing that I thought of, that in addition to finding a new venue and doing a hybridization, the facility would also have to have a monitor so that those who are in person would be able to see presentations being made by, the people who are making their presentations on Zoom. So, there are a number of obstacles. Go ahead, Michael.
and there would have to be Wi-Fi access, and we would have to be able to have access to it.
True.
That,
So
yeah.
that's an additional factor. So if anybody, knows or hears of this Claire, somehow or other, she, must have attended at some point, an in-person meeting, but, don't know. All right. Thanks, Sally.
Can I just have a follow-up to that? Is the club comfortable with me making these kinds of statements if I receive further inquiries on Facebook?
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
Excuse me, this is Phil.
Yes, Phil.
Just a refresher, why is Trinity no longer available? I've forgotten what.
My recollection is that first, they didn't have the Wi-Fi that was sufficient for us. And secondly, for some, had to do with insurance or whatever. I'm not sure really, Phil. I see Lauren shaking his head, so maybe I'm accurate in what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Now, actually, that was
this is Dennis. I do recall something about insurance, liability insurance. Gemini, long time ago, that we would have to have that. And but I was going to ask people that don't live in the metropolitan DC area, like yourself, Frank and John Abbott, you guys, get a chance to attend just like everybody else right now. So I think that this is a good venue. And if we want to meet more often, then we can have a third luncheon.
I'm always in favor of that, Dennis. That's okay with me. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I agree that the Zoom meeting definitely adds, we can get speakers from all over the country.
Right.
Which we have. We've had a number from California. I've had one from Canada. We've got Tennessee coming in January. So, a number. And plus, we also now have, members who, we have at least one or two members on the West Coast. We've got members who are living in Arizona and other places that join us on the phone. So,
And
well,
I
it
don't
would
know,
be nice.
at least on the West Coast, a meeting room is between $250 to $500 a pop here on the West Coast. I would assume it'd be very similar.
There you go, Walden. Yeah, thank you for that. That's also
Yeah.
a factor for sure. All right, well, is there any other new business?
I think there's one other factor, and I think Michael can collaborate this. I think if we go live, we've got to start worrying about multiple microphones, and we would require like basically the club to really have some sort of a mixing board so that you get the audio not only from microphones from the live event, but a feed in from the Zoom call so that everybody can hear everything at once. And I think that would be a part of the technical issues that we would face for going through all of this stuff too.
Yeah, it would add a lot of technical challenges, and you got the expense of renting a place then. So,
right.
Yeah, Walden had mentioned to me about the mixing board that one of his organizations that he belongs to uses. So yeah, you're right on, Jeff, with that.
The mixing board, and also Like on for us to do, we spent some money on laptops, so the club would have to consider buying a couple of laptops just to make it work. Mobile, that you're looking almost $2,500 just an additional fee.
Yeah. So,
Frank?
yes,
Frank,
Lawrence.
yeah, I know for a fact there are some public facilities available but to require adjustment of time. I don't know any more than details, but for example, in Arlington, and I do not live in Arlington, but Virginia does, but I'm up there all the time. But Arlington main public library is just very close to where we used to meet, and they have very good facilities there, from what I understand. Okay. And I don't think that they charge, or if they do, it would be nominal. I mean, it's not been, I don't think it's been investigated. And I remember some years ago too, there was another facility. There was a school facility we used on a few occasions for our presentations that was down on Walter Reed Drive off of Columbia Pike there. And again, the question might be the timing, that they might want to shut down the place at 9 o'clock, and we'd have to be totally out of there like at 9 o'clock. So we'd have to start at 6:30 or 7 or something like that. But in terms of a facility, I think within the metropolitan area, and I say closer in with the metropolitan area of Northern Virginia, that there are those kinds of facilities that could be explored. Presumably, again, the main library for Arlington would probably have Wi-Fi and would probably have a lot of these other facilities. Again, I know nothing about what's there. I just know they have the facility, and it's available to community organizations. And it's Joni, Arlington, Alexandria may have the same things. Michael, Fairfax County, they may have something that's relatively accessible. I don't know. I have no real clue on those, but
I wouldn't know that either, because I'm in Prince William.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're down in, never mind. I forgot. You're in Manassas. Well, so am I. I'm in Prince William also, but the other end of the town, the county. But in any case, whoever was in Fairfax out there, Sally, you're in Fairfax, aren't you? Yeah. So there are those kinds of facilities around, and they're public, and they're meant for organizations such as ours. And I have, like I say, I know nothing about the details, because nobody's but if it becomes something that the club really wants to explore, I'm sure that they could gin up a committee to go around and hit up some of these places and find out what they've got available and what the terms are, and what's the starting point, and whether that makes any sense, because Walden's brought up some good ideas about, and of course, John, good ideas, as well as Jeff, what kinds of connectivity you need, and what kinds of transmission of voice and video and so on. Again, those are all beyond me, but I do know there's these kinds of facilities around. So, and many of them, it would be, if any charge, it would be nominal, but I think most of them are free, as long as you can confine yourself to the hours that they're available, and that you can get them to agree to give it to us, like, for example, like we do now, every second Friday of the month. So, but they're out though.
There is one other consideration. A lot of us are getting older and don't drive as well at night, because we don't see as well in the dark, and changing of the lights coming at us. So
yeah,
I'm with you on that.
And also, but Lawrence also, I just want to chime in here. I can't speak for every library.
Yeah.
But I do know that when we needed to do a rehearsal for the last live thing that we did at Mank, not too long ago, we did go to a library and use one of their meeting rooms. It was certainly, it was a challenge just for the 8 or 9 of us that were there in terms of space. To hold an actual meeting in one of these rooms would have been impossible, because it would have only held maybe a dozen people at most. So there's that as well.
Yeah, I've seen the one in Arlington, and it's definitely, I think it's much more comparable to what we had, or at least much bigger than what you just described, but that's neither here nor there at this point. And by the way, Phil, as somebody who's going to be 81 in December, I agree. I understand what you're talking about. Is I try to cut back as driving as much as possible at night too, but nonetheless, that's a fact of life. If that's what it takes to get to places these days.
Problem solved if you want to stay in Fairfax, because all their libraries close at 6. So we have to. Yeah. So,
which cuts out people that are still working. So yeah.
Yeah, me and Michael and a few others of us, I guess.
So I think leaving it like it is the best solution, really. That's my vote anyway.
All right, thank you. All right, unless there's any other new business, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. John Abbott, so moved.
Seconded.
Okay, we got a couple seconds, so all those in favor say, just raise your hands.
Yeah.
Unanimous. All right, so you can end the recording now, Kelly.
Thank you. That was okay. That's okay. Let me stop the recording.
Say goodnight, Gracie.